because of the aging population, which on its own we were kind of managing, but throw in the declining birth rate as well, and it starts to look increasingly difficult to sustain. And that's why we've seen the government first raise the retirement age for women from 60 to 65. Then they pushed everybody's retirement age up to 66. It's about to go to 67. Then it's set to go to 68. And already we're asking questions, well, is even that going to be enough? And then you get the problem that life expectancy, quality of life across the country is extremely varied. Like if you go to Blackpool, life expectancy there is 10, 12, 15 years lower than it is for someone living in, say, Dorset.
I live right next to Blackpool. I'm on the final stretch already.
So I live up that way myself. So I'm not picking on Blackpool.
Well, I'm in Southport, so I can see it across the water, but it's an hour drive. So yeah, we don't.
I'm a bit further north. So anyway, we digress. So because the disparities in life expectancy, it becomes increasingly problematic just to keep pushing up the state pension age, because you get increasing numbers of people who are going to say, well, why am I paying into a state pension system where I'm probably not going to benefit from this? I'm not going to live long enough to even get my pension back out the other end. So you have to start asking questions around, well, do we means test it? Do we say, okay, rich people just don't get the state pension anymore. They don't need it. They've got lots of money. We're just not going to give it to you, because that's quite a difficult message to sell. And in fact,
still got to pay into it though.
Still got to pay into it. And actually means testing is pretty bureaucratic. So it costs a lot of money to administer as well. Do you test people's eligibility for the state pension based on their life expectancy? Do you say, well, you're in good health, you young men sitting across the table from me, you're obviously very healthy, you're not going to get your state pension until you're 80 because you're going to live for another 20 years after that. I mean, that's very divisive. That's a really problematic thing to do as well. So there's no easy answers to that. And by the way, more than 50% of retirees rely on the state pension for more than 50% of their retirement
income. Even the
income.
Richest cohort, it's a third of their income.
It's a really important slice of people's retirement income. So you can't just turn the tap off, right? So then how do you manage that? Because as the population ages, more and more of the state spending has to be diverted into pensions. And of course, it's not just pensions. You've got social care and you've got healthcare as well. Over the next 50 years, the proportion of state spending devoted to pensions, social care and healthcare is set to rise from 15% today to 25% of state spending. More and more of the state, at a time when we need to spend more on defence and other things as well, more and more state spending is going to have to be devoted to paying for those older people. And in that context, how do we prop up a state pension? So the only thing that fixes that is getting people to save more of their own money to build up private savings. Now, you can do other things as well. Like over the long term, we could take a 50-year run up at it and say, let's just start diverting a little bit of state money now into a national wealth fund, a pool of money that's run and owned by the state that in 40 or 50 years' time could build up to the kind of level where it could sustainably pay for some of the state pensions rather than it all coming out of current taxation. Maybe that's the kind of solution we need to look at now. So it's great that politicians are talking about possibly doing a review of pensions, but I think they need to think quite radically, because these are really big problems that need quite a long run up to fix.
If you're curious about what else Tom has to say about pensions, you really should be. Click here to watch the whole interview.